the word black means criminal and slave in the United States. And it is a badge of slavery prohibited by the 13th Amendment. So the reality is, what they're not saying we're not Moors. They have us in a Negro status, and they block our access to the rights and benefits of the Moorish identity because we're still identifying as blacks, African Americans, Negroes, because all these types of things. So that's the mechanism that they're utilizing. And that's why we introduce systems to apply those mechanisms to get the freedom. Because remember, back in the slave days, you used to have your freedom papers.
Right.
Now, let's talk about that, brother. Now, why does a brother have to relinquish these contracts and with paperwork? So you have to free yourself from paperwork with paperwork?
Yeah. Well, here's
Talk
the thing.
about it.
Here's the thing.
Oh, you want to get all into it with just 20 minutes left? All right, for sure.
We got 3 minutes left?
We got more than that. I'm just like, I wish we had an hour. Go ahead.
No, it's all good. I'll wrap it up.
Let's touch on it.
All right, so here's the thing. When you're talking about the paperwork issue, paperwork is how civilizations and governments operate.
Facts.
Okay,
Black and white.
Black and white. Everything is contractual agreements and paperwork, stuff like that.
Commerce.
So in order to break any contract, in order to communicate any of these issues, it has to be in writing. Because this is what happens when you go to court. It's all in paperwork. When somebody want to lock you up, the police fills out a report, fills out that arrest warrant. The judge signs that. Right. So back in those days, they would consider that stuff like high-level sorcery magic. Even though we know it's not magic, it's back in those days, reading and writing was seen as something like magical.
I'm not sure it's not still that way.
No, absolutely. Because even when you look at some of the tribes in America who wasn't astute like that,
right?
They thought it was magic when they saw a European write something down on the paper and give it to another European, and he read what was on the paper. They never seen nothing like that before. So my point is, the way they move with the system, they do everything in paperwork. So the only way you can communicate and achieve some of the things you want to achieve is you got to put it in writing. It has to be. There's a process to these things. So that's why it's ultimately necessary. I think our people get a little bit lazy when they start realizing
how much work is involved,
how much work and the mountains of stuff they got us buried under. When you wake up to the Moorish identity, you like, man, we got so many layers that we have to remove.